Good morning and welcome to Mission Control Houston and coverage of Expedition 37's Russian spacewalk number 36 on board the International Space Station. Spacewalkers Oleg Kotov and Sergei Rosansky are already inside the Pirs airlock that they'll be exiting the space station from, and they are wearing their Orlan spacesuits getting ready for today's spacewalk. Inside the Pirs with them, of course, is the Olympic torch carried into space Wednesday on board the Soyuz TMA-11M. Kotov and Rosansky will be taking it with them as they venture outside the space station for a special torch handoff that's going to mark the first time an Olympic torch has been exposed to the vacuum of space. The previous torch was carried to space inside Space Shuttle Atlantis in 1996, but this is the first time that an Olympic torch has been taken on a spacewalk.
I think it's got something to do with
the first portion of today's spacewalk will be devoted to the torch, with Flight Engineer Oleg Kotov handing it off to Flight Engineer Sergei Rosansky and then getting it back. And after that, the spacewalkers have two other major tasks on their to-do list. They'll be setting up a spacewalk platform, moving a foot restraint to it and installing an ingress aid, and then removing a launch restraint bracket. That workstation was actually installed during the last Russian spacewalk in August, and next month another spacewalk will include a task to add an optical camera system to it. And then to wrap up the spacewalk, Kotov and Rosansky will deactivate the radiometria experiment on the Zvezda service module. That experiment was installed back in 2011 and looked at collecting information for seismic forecast and earthquake predictions. All in all, these tasks are expected to take about 6 hours for the spacewalkers to complete.
5 minutes, 50 seconds. 550. Okay, copy. We're waiting for pre-brief completion. And then we'll move to item 6, step 12.
To give you a more in-depth look at the task on the spacewalkers to-do list today, we have some animation next that we're going to play for you here on NASA TV. This is Mission Control Houston.
Russian EVA-36 will be conducted by Oleg Kotov as EV-1 in the red striped suit, and Sergei Rosansky will be EV-2 in the blue striped suit. Sergei will egress Pirs Docking Compartment 1, or DC-1, first. After emerging from DC-1, Oleg and Sergei will set up their tools and equipment before conducting a photo opportunity with the Olympic torch. Once the photography is complete, the spacewalkers will stow the torch back inside DC-1 and Oleg will egress. Then the crew will retrieve a crew lock bag, which contains tools and hardware for the EVA and a foot restraint ingress aid from DC-1. Sergei will translate around DC-1 to the service module and DC-1 interface, where he will retrieve the Yonkor foot restraint and translate back to the EVA ladder. Then Oleg and Sergei will take the foot restraint and ingress aid along with the crew lock bag to one of the Service Module Universal Work platforms where the biaxial pointing platform, or DPN, is located. There they will install the foot restraint and ingress aid at the work site. After the installation of the foot restraint and ingress aid, Oleg and Sergei will then remove the DPN launch bracket. Then the crew will translate to the SM smaller diameter and temp stow the crew lock bag on a handrail on the SM. They will continue around the SM to the radiometria, or also known as RK21 antenna. Once at the RK21 worksite, Oleg will open up a connector patch panel and disconnect a connector and close up the patch panel. Sergey will do the same at the opposite connector patch panel. Then the two cables will be removed from RK21 and stowed. Then Oleg and Sergey will translate to the RK21 antenna and fold it up in its original configuration. Once complete with folding up the RK21 antenna, the crew will translate back to the temp stowed crew lock bag and retrieve it. Then the crew will head back to DC1, stow the crew lock bag into DC1 and ingress. This will conclude Russian EVA 36.
Incrementing. Opening is the SO to open. It's open. Pressure is dropping.
That again was a look at the task of today's Russian spacewalk 36, led off, of course, by a special handoff of an Olympic torch that's eventually going to be used to light the flame at the Winter Games held in Russia on February 7th.
2026. Oleg, don't forget about monitoring.
That torch was just brought into space on Wednesday aboard Soyuz TMA-11M, carried by the station's newest crew members, Mikhail Turin, Rick Mastracchio, and Koichi Wakata. They're starting their 6-month stay at the station, just as flight engineers Karen Nyberg, Luca Parmitano, and Commander Fyodor Yurchikhin are ending theirs. They'll take the torch back to Earth with them tomorrow when they undock from the station for a landing in Baikonur, Kazakhstan.
What about you, Sue? 039.
Look at all the different coverage events of their undocking and landing here. You can see that that will kick off on Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Central Time with farewell and hatch closures, and won't wrap up until landing in Kazakhstan at 8:49 p.m. Central Time.
350-039 are in the suit and stay.
Because all of these groups arrived on different Soyuz and need to be able to access them in case of an emergency.
Very good.
Some of the crew are restricted to various parts of the station during today's spacewalk. Nyberg, Parmitano, And your Chicken Soyuz is now docked to the Zvezda service module at the end of the station, so they'll be limited to that area. The new crew members dock their Soyuz to the Russian Mini Research Module 1, so they'll have access to Zarya and all of the U.S. side of the station as well. And that just leaves Michael Hopkins. His two crewmates are spacewalking, so he'll be alone in the Russian Mini Research Module 2, where their Soyuz is docked.
Copy that. 250, 039er.
And supporting here on the ground, the team inside Mission Control Houston is led today by Flight Director Tomas Gonzalez Torres, with Mike Jensen in the role of Capcom. And of course, in Russia, Mission Control Moscow. The team there is also ready to support and watching activities as Kotov and Rosansky prepare to begin their spacewalk in just a few minutes.
200 millimeters. 2 minutes prior to injector deactivate. Copy that. 180, 180.
Sure.
160, 160, 039er, stable for P. Orlan.
While we're waiting for the spacewalk to start, we thought we'd pause for a moment to share with you some footage of Super Typhoon Haiyan, taken yesterday by cameras on board the space station on the exterior of the station. Haiyan is being called one of the most powerful storms ever recorded, and it hit the Philippines on Friday as a Category 5 storm. Its winds are estimated to be about 195 miles per hour, which breaks the previous record of 190 miles per hour for Hurricane Camille in 1969. In addition to this footage, flight engineer Karen Nyberg tweeted a photo of the storm earlier today at her account, which is at AstroKarenN. You can find that at twitter.com/AstroKarenN. That's all one word, that you see down there in the corner of your screen. You can also learn more about the information NASA's Tropical Rainfall Measuring Mission has been able to gather on the storm online at nasa.gov. There's a link to the information from the front page at this time. The storm is expected to continue westward toward Vietnam now.
038. Okay. 0.38.
Continuing to wait as flight engineers Oleg Kotov and Sergei Rosansky make their preparations for today's spacewalk inside the Pirs docking compartment, which they'll be exiting the space station from. Today is Rosansky's first spacewalk. He'll be designated EV2 and will be wearing a suit with a blue stripe. EV1 Oleg Kotov will be wearing a suit with a red stripe to differentiate the two spacewalkers. Today will actually be Kotov's fourth spacewalk. He completed 2 during Expedition 15 in 2007 and a third spacewalk during Expedition 23 in 2009 and has a current total spacewalking time of 17 hours and 31 minutes.
All right. Very good.
Today's spacewalk will also be the 174th spacewalk for International Space Station Assembly and Maintenance. At this point,
Moving
the total for all 173 spacewalks performed to date comes to 1,088 hours and 49 minutes.
copy.
Again, today's spacewalk is expected to last about 6.5 hours to give Kotov and Rosansky time to perform their 3 main tasks, starting with, of course, the ceremonial Olympic torch handoff. Again, Kotov will be handing that to Rosansky, and obviously it will not be lit as it normally is on the ground for a number of safety reasons. However, it will be used later in the official torch relay to actually light the Olympic flame in Russia before the Winter Games start. After that, the two will be moving to the Zvezda module, where they're going to be working on a spacewalk workstation that was actually installed during the last spacewalk by Fyodor Yurchikhin and Alexander Masurkin in August. And they are going to be setting it up today by relocating a foot restraint to it and then installing an ingress aid there and removing a launch restraint bracket. And then once that's done, their final task on their list will be to deactivate the radiometria experiment on Zvezda
Number 2 and too close position.
by disconnecting some cables and then folding its antenna down. That experiment was installed in 2011 on Russian EVA-28 by Dmitry Kondrachev and Oleg Skropochka. It's designed to collect information for seismic forecast and earthquake predictions.
The DC pressure reading for 12, 1, 2. Copy, 12. And then we're going to be transitioning to standalone power. We'll need to shed the loads, turn off the radio, the pumps, and then we'll activate on standalone. Then we'll demate the umbilical, fluid umbilical, and the electrical umbilical as well. Should make it a little cooler right now. And once we go off the fluid umbilicals, we'll have some time before the sublimator kicks in, so we'll, we should kind of cool it off a little bit right now. Cover that little time frame.
While the spacewalk preparations are going on inside the Piers docking compartment, you can see that the newest crew members at the space station have access to the U.S. labs. Here is Koichi Wakata, one of the 3 crew members that came up just Wednesday to the space station aboard the Soyuz TMA-11M that carried the torch that we'll see today on today's spacewalk.
Oleg, we're 3-5 minutes into the monitoring. Can you tell me the DC-1 pressure? We're 3 minutes into it, and per MV we've got 12 millimeters. Good, very good. We're going to give it another 2 minutes.
Since we have a little more time, we're now going to show you the launch that brought not only Koichi Wakata, Mikhail Turin, and Rick Mastracchio to the space station, but also, of course, the Olympic torch that's going to be handed off during today's spacewalk. It's a view of that Soyuz taking off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on Wednesday.
Liftoff of the Soyuz rocket and the TMA-11M spacecraft on a truly Olympic leap, delivering 3 more crew members to the International Space Station on a historic mission to continue the seamless transition of humans on their own relay to continue studying science in space.
20 seconds. Jets firing.
Reporting the second stage engines are in great shape.
And the weather is...
And the shroud is now separated from the vehicle. Soyuz is traveling at about 4,700 miles per hour.
Can you see?
Inside,
we can see
3 crew members, Koichi Wakata. As you see, the onboard mascot with the crew members, one of the Olympic Winter Game mascots, a polar bear.
And everything is going on nominally. Actually, the launch was pretty smooth. Now we can feel some G-loads, but we take it all right.
We've passed the 5-minute mark. What's the DC-1 pressure for the MV?
That again was a look at the launch on Wednesday that set off the events leading to this spacewalk, bringing not only 3 new crew members to the space station, but the Olympic torch that's going to be seen in today's spacewalk, handed off from Oleg Kotov to Sergei Rosansky. It'll be returned to Earth by a different Soyuz and crew tomorrow when flight engineers Karen Nyberg and Luca Parmitano leave the space station along with Commander Fyodor Yurchikhin. They'll be taking their Soyuz TMA-09M back to Kazakhstan and bringing back to Earth the Olympic torch so that it can continue on its leg of the journey towards the Winter Games.
Prime 2 on, and then do not lock the backup. All right, for me, this is AV1. Okay, done. It's running. All right. Prime transmitter depressed.
Here inside Mission Control Houston, we have a look here at the EVA console. EVA, of course, stands for Extra Vehicular Activity, a fancy word for spacewalk. Since this is a Russian spacewalk, they won't have a very direct
what's the voltage reading on the
part in the activities, but they will be monitoring here from here on the ground and ready to help out if needed. The spacewalkers today are making use of a few pieces of U.S. equipment for their spacewalk, and that is going to include some helmet cameras that should give us a good view of today's activities.
All right, removing power. Yeah, deactivate PO and turn off the power on suit 1 and suit 2. Okay, PO is off. Suit 1 and suit 2 are off. Demating electrical connectors. Copy that? All right, stowing. Copy? Use the MLI flaps to cover the Orlan electrical connectors. Copy and confirmed. Connectors are covered. Got to be very precise. Got to make sure that I put it in the pocket. Yeah, don't need to put it in the pocket. Don't need to keep it in the pocket. Got to attach the cable. All right, moving on. You can stow it somewhere under the hatch. Okay. Demating fluid umbilicals. Copy. Confirm. You tell us, Dima, what to do. Demate the fluid umbilicals. In work. Demating. CO2 prime and message should come up. VO2 Olsen and confirm when you get that message. Copy. Move says into O2 close.